Hi, my name's Amelia and welcome to Sew Amelia, my channel where I talk all about making a handmade wardrobe for me and my children. Welcome to this week's video, which is a week in my sewing life. It's Monday and I'm up in the sewing room. Unfortunately, one of my children is not very well today, so I've spent the morning with him. He's now asleep, poor love, and I thought I would nip up to the sewing room just for a few minutes of me time before he wakes up and I need to go and help him again. So I thought I'd share with you what my plans are for this week. Whether or not they end up happening is another thing entirely, but you know what it's like when life happens. So I thought I would come up and share my plans and we'll see how I get on with them this week. Now, a little while ago, I received this beautiful viscose poplin from Fabric Zone UK, and they gifted that to me, which is so kind of them. And I'm really excited to sew this up into something for the spring and the summer. Now, I've been seeing lots of inspiration over on my Instagram from some high street brands, and I'll pop some photos in here, of V-necked dresses with fitted bodices, but then light, floaty, tiered maxi skirts. So that's what I'm going to try and recreate with this beautiful viscose poplin. And I thought I'd start on that this week. Now, the pattern I'd love to use as a base for this came free with my Simply Sewing magazine. I think it was this month. And it is the Mia dress by Make It With Mandy Patterns. Now, I really like the fitted bodice on this pattern, and I love the tiered skirt. I love how it's fitted around the waist and hips, and then it flows out from there. I'd like to make mine a maxi length, so I may add another tier to the bottom of it. I'm just going to see how the length comes out on me before I decide whether I'm going to add that in or not. So that looks like a lovely base pattern to start off with. I usually prefer sort of round-necked dresses, but I've been seeing so many V-necked dresses on the high street that I'm really inspired to try that pattern to recreate that V-necked bodice look. Now, the only thing I'm going to change about the Mia dress is that I'd like to add a bit more of a sleeve to it. If you've been here before, you know I love a puffed sleeve. I really like the look that gives to garments. So what I'm thinking I will probably do is use the sleeve piece from the Amelia blouse by Anna Allen Patterns and perhaps elasticate the cuff. I haven't quite decided on that yet, but I'm going to cut out the Amelia blouse sleeve piece and attach that to the Mia dress. I will check the arm side measurements and things, but I think because it's just a gathered sleeve, it should fit in to the arm side of the Mia dress bodice just fine. I have recently made the Anna Allen Amelia blouse. If you want to see my version, do pop over to my February makes video where I share that blouse. It's such a lovely make, and I do love the sleeves on that blouse, and I think they'll work really well in this viscose poplin. It has a beautiful drape to it, like a viscose would, but because of the poplin, it also has a little bit more structure than just a viscose. So I think it will work really well for the floaty tiers, but also for that sleeve. So that's my plan for the week so far. I am starting to work a little bit as well on my Sew Frugal 22 makes, but I'm going to keep those a surprise for my reveal at the end of the month. So a little bit of sewing will be happening on my free patterns behind the scenes. If you've not yet seen my video on my choices for Sew Frugal 22, I'll link that in the cards just up here and I'll pop it in the description box below. Do go and have a look at the patterns that I am thinking about making. So I'm going to be working a little bit on those this week as well, but this is my primary focus this week, is to see if I can make this up. The weather is changing slowly. Outside it's beautiful blue skies and sunshine today, but it is also very, very cold. But it's inspiring me to get a bit of spring and summer sewing started. I'm going to hopefully pop back up here tonight and get some sewing on this done if I manage to cut the pieces out this afternoon. So hopefully I'll pop back on at some point today or tomorrow and let you know how I'm getting on with my Mia dress hack. It's Tuesday and I'm up in the sewing room. Thankfully my little boy is better, but I didn't get much more sewing time last night. So I ended up finishing cutting out the Mia dress just now. So all of the pieces are now cut out and I'm ready to start sewing that up. What I thought I'd do today at nap time is try and see if I can get the bodice started. So that's putting in the darts and perhaps getting to sewing up the shoulder seams here and the side seams. Now I think that's probably where I'll have to stop because the next step in the instructions is to put in the zip. and I don't have a red invisible zip. Now I have ordered one and hopefully that'll arrive in the next couple of days and so I can carry on with that dress. But I think in the meantime I can do all of the other bits. So I'll sew the tiers of the skirt together. I will probably sew up the sleeve, gather that into the bias cuff and prepare all of those little bits, and then the last step, I'll have to just switch the instructions around a little bit, hopefully that'll work. But the last step for me will be putting in that invisible zip. So I should say I am going to have to change the threads on my overlocker first before I get started because it's currently set to blue. So before I even start on the fabric, I am going to need to change the threads on my overlocker. And I do like to put a new needle on my machine for each project when I do start. This is quite a thin viscose. I don't want to pull any of the threads while I sew, so I'm going to put on a microtex needle for this one just to make sure that I keep the fabric from pulling and from threads from pulling. And then obviously need to thread it up with some red thread. So actually, who knows how much sewing will get done today. We'll just see, but the first step is rethreading the overlocker and the machine, and then we'll see what happens after that. Hi, so it's Wednesday night, I'm back in the sewing room and I thought I'd catch you up with my progress from yesterday. I think I always forget or underestimate how long the first step in the sewing process goes. So that is the adding of the interfacing and the darts and just getting ready to sew. So yesterday I popped in my favourite stay stitching technique, which is to use this forming interfacing strip. It's just so much faster and I just feel like it's a little bit more secure than simply stay stitching. I added in the darts, so you can sort of see down there, there are 2 darts in the back bodice, and then the front bodice also has the dart going down this way. There is no dart coming across, I should say, coming across here. So we'll see, I may need to add that for shaping, but I'm going to wait and see when I try that on. And fortunately my zips arrived today, so I'm really excited about that. I ordered a few zips, a few invisible zips, because I do like to have a selection of those in my stash. So that's brilliant, I have that now. I also interfaced the facing pieces, so those are ready to go. So after all of that preparation, I'm now ready to sew tonight. I did read the instructions today whilst my daughter was napping just to see how the process of sewing this dress looks. It's quite an interesting construction, but I do think I'm going to go off-piste a little bit and sew it not according to pattern instructions. That could be a fail. We'll see. You'll certainly see by the end of this video if it worked out or not. The instructions suggest to sew in the invisible zip next after attaching the first tier to the back bodice pieces and the front bodice separately. So I am going to attach that first tier, which isn't gathered, to the back bodice pieces and to the front bodice. Once I've done that, I'm actually going to sew the bodice at the shoulder seams and the side seams right down that tier, first tier, because I want to make sure that the fit of the bodice is right for me. I did cut the bodice at a size 34 across the bust, grading to a 36 at the waist, and I want to make sure that that grading is correct. I'm then going to baste in the invisible zip and again check the fit. I want this to be really fitted across my bust and make sure the waist is in the right place before I obviously go ahead and put in that invisible zip properly and add the ruffled tiers. But yes, I don't want to attach all of the skirt before I've checked the fit of the bodice, and I think it has sewing up the bodice as a step quite a lot further on in the sewing process. So I'm just going to bring that forward according to other bodices I've sewn up in the past. Like I said, we'll see if it's a success or not. But I'm going to crack on now. I've got about an hour or so before I'm going to head off to bed, and I'm going to see how much of that bodice I can get sewn up tonight. Hello, it's Thursday, it's nap time, and I have a sleeping baby, so I thought I'd pop up to the sewing room. It has been such a lovely morning. I can't tell you how lovely it is to see the sunshine. I've even got a t-shirt on because the sun has been streaming into the house, and actually we've been outside playing in the garden, which has been so nice. So last night I got the bodice sewn together and I basted in the zip at the back just to really check that fit, and I'm so glad I did. When I decided on what size to make, I used the size chart on the back of the pattern. However, I really should have checked for finished measurements. They are here, they're on the inside of the instruction booklet, which I didn't see until last night. Even though I read the instruction booklet, sometimes these things, you just miss them. So using the measurements on the cover, I fell into a size 10 for my bust and a size 12 for my waist. So I traced out a size 10 grading to a size 12 when I traced out the pattern. However, looking at the finished garment measurements, I would have actually traced out a size 8 on the bust and a size 10 at the waist, because that would have given me a finished measurement more appropriate to my bust size and my waist size, because I did want this to be more of a fitted bodice. So it's still fine, and I'm glad I put it together this way, because what I was able to do last night was, once I basted in the zip, I was just able to take in this side seam here underneath the arms by almost an inch actually, which makes it slightly more fitted, but everything else still sits right. So the darts are still in the right place, the shoulders still sit nicely, there's still enough room under the arms, and then I just put the zip in with the full 5/8 inch seam allowance. And that I think sits just fine. It sits nice and snugly down here across my waist while still giving me some nice fullness over my hips with that first tier. So the plan for nap time now, if I can, is to sew this zip in properly, and then what I would like to do is to attach the sleeves to the bodice. I could wait and do them last, but because of the fullness of all of these tiers of fabric, and sleeves are quite a fiddly thing to get in and around your sewing machine, so I think what I will do is I will do the sleeves next, and then I know I've got a finished bodice, and then it's quite straightforward to just add tiers of fabric to the skirt. Plan is to see if I can get that zip sewn in and then start on the sleeves. So probably all I'm going to get done today is to gather the sleeve heads, sew the underarm seam of the sleeve, and perhaps start attaching the cuff piece, the bias bound cuff, to the bottom of those sleeves. I don't think I'll get them set in today. That's the plan. I'll pop back on later and let you know how it goes. But yes, I'm so excited to see the sunshine. It's a real mood booster, and I'm looking forward to having a play in the park after school pickup with my children and just enjoying some of this spring sunshine. We've had a lovely busy day today, and I've just managed to get up to the sewing room now that all the children are in bed and asleep. So I thought I'd catch you up with my progress from yesterday. I did actually manage to get quite a bit sewn up yesterday, and then I've done a little bit of hand sewing today, so I shall share that progress with you now. So here's the blouse so far. You can see the V neckline just here. And that's finished with a facing, and what I did today, you will have seen from the footage, is I just hand picked that. Hopefully you can't see the stitches from the outside. It's helped by this fabric. I just managed to always pick a piece of the red rather than the white so that you can't see the stitches. The thing I detest about facing is when it flicks forward or when it sort of moves about underneath, and because this is a V-neck, when I tried it on last night I found the facing did move about a little bit. Now I didn't want to top stitch it down, I think that would affect the lines of the dress, but I did want to make sure that that stayed firmly in place. So I did just spend some time today when I had a moment and the children were busy just hand picking that so that it is sitting flat. So hopefully that will work really nicely when I wear that one. Now I followed carefully the instructions about putting in this zip and measured exactly 2 centimeters down, but I have been left with this gap at the top, which is a little bit frustrating, and I really don't like gaps at the top. So what I am going to do when I finish off this dress is I'm going to add a hook and an eye there just to close up that gap so everything is really just neat. I do like the finish of my dresses to be as neat as I can. I did insert the sleeves from the Anthea dress, so they're lovely and voluminous, but because it's in a viscose, I think it'll actually just give it a lovely drape. What's next? Well, this has got, you'll remember that first tier on it. There's the waist seam here. It's quite hard to see with this red colour. So the first tier is in. So tonight I'm going to just see how far I get. It is a Friday night, so I have poured myself my favourite Sauvignon Blanc. It's a New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc, which is my favourite being from New Zealand, I do like a New Zealand wine. So I've poured myself a glass of that. I've got a movie lined up that I'm really looking forward to watching, and I'm just going to do some slow sewing tonight. So I'm going to gather the second and the third tier. I'm going to hem that third tier, and then I'm going to put those onto the dress. Now originally I was thinking about making 5 tiers for this dress, but I think I'm going to stick with 3. I really like the 3 that are in the original pattern. The only thing I might do is add another tier if I want to increase the length of it from a midi dress to a maxi dress. So before I hem that, obviously I will try it on. So yes, if it's finished or not, I shall pop back on tomorrow and give you a little sneak peek at what I have managed to do in my week of sewing. Saturday, and it's the end of my week in sewing, and I thought I would share my finished dress with you. I have managed to get it finished today. I've just sewn on the last tier, so it is hot off the sewing machine, which is why I'm not wearing it in the video, but I will pop in some pictures so that you can see the full dress. So here it is on the hanger, and you can see the lovely V neckline here and the beautiful sleeves. I'm really pleased with those. Now in terms of inserting those, because it's a gathered sleeve, I wasn't so worried about inserting it into this bodice, and in fact if I had used the indigo bodice as I had originally planned, the Tilly and the Buttons indigo, they would have gone into that bodice just fine as well. The reason I decided not to use the indigo in the end was because I wanted this V neckline. I would have had to mess around with the neckline on the indigo pattern, as that is a curved neckline. So when I saw the Mia dress pattern, I thought actually I'm going to just try this and see if it might work as a base for the idea that I had in my head. Now I'm glad I did. It's worked out really well. I think the only change I would make for next time is that I would sew the size down. So I would sew the size 8 bodice grading to a 10 at the waist. This time I made the 10 graded to the 12, but I did end up taking a large chunk off these side seams to make it fitted the way I wanted it to. So I would size down. If I had wanted a more drapey, flowy look, then the size 10-12 would have been fine, but I did want a more fitted bodice, which I think this is. So that's good. I really love these Anthea sleeves, and like I said, I think you could very easily put them onto any bodice because of the gathered nature of the sleeve. It just fits in as long as you adjust the gathers accordingly to your sleeve arm size. Then I really like these gathers. They're nice and full. I like the way that this sits quite flat against my hips, because then there's just not too many gathers across the widest part of my body, so that's quite flattering, I think. And then you get those floaty gathers going down towards the floor. So the only thing I would say is I did sew this up completely different to the order in the instructions. I think I'm so used to putting a dress together in a certain way in terms of the steps that I follow that I found the order of the steps in the pattern instructions just a little unfamiliar perhaps. So I did put this together in quite a different order from the pattern instructions, but it's all come out fine in the end. The only thing is it does have a facing across that V neckline, which I don't love. I just find facings flip out and they're annoying. Now fortunately this fabric is busy enough that I was able to sew that down without too much fuss and bother, and I don't think you can see the stitching on the front, so that's fine. Were I to make it again, I would just put a lining inside the bodice so it's completely lined, and then sew that lining into the first tier of the skirt. For me, I think I would prefer the look and the feel of that, and I wouldn't then be so worried about the facing of flipping out. But that's a personal preference and nothing to do with the pattern. That's just what I prefer. I would rather have a lining than a facing. But everybody's different, and that's what's wonderful about sewing, is you can do you, and that's great. I am really happy with the pattern. I would sew it up again. I think it's going to be a great easy summer dress to wear, and I'm actually looking forward to adding a couple more of those to my wardrobe. I think it will be great. I think I can wear it dressed down with trainers, or I think I could put on a nice strappy sandal and it would look quite dressed up, which is fantastic. I hope you enjoyed seeing it made up in little bits and bobs throughout my week. It has been a funny old week with poorly children and lots on after school and in our evenings. But that's just what sewing is like with 3 children, little bits of time here and there, and I do have a finished dress at the end of the week, which is great. So I'm looking forward to adding that to my spring wardrobe. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you have enjoyed the video, please leave a like and a comment. Let me know whether you would make this dress or what you're sewing for the spring and summer, and if you have any recommendations for a lovely floaty summer dress, do leave those below. If you haven't yet subscribed, I would so appreciate it if you would become one of my regular viewers by subscribing and hitting that notification bell so you will be made aware of when I publish future videos. So thank you again for joining me today. I hope you have a very happy week ahead, full of lovely sewing, and I shall see you in the next one. Goodbye.